The massive transport ship landed with a soft hiss on the docking platform of the Galactic Federation Military Academy. Located on planet Calthoria, the Academy stood as the most respected training facility in the known galaxy. Its tall, metallic towers gleamed under the light of two distant suns. Cadet Han Sol stepped out of the ship and took his first breath of alien air. It felt thin in his lungs, lighter than Earth's atmosphere. The gravity pulled at him gently, much weaker than what he was used to. He squared his shoulders and walked forward, carrying his small bag of belongings. "First time off-world?" asked a friendly voice behind him. Han Sol turned to see another human cadet. The young man had a bright smile and confident eyes. "I'm Ji-Hoo," the cadet said, extending his hand. "Looks like we're the only humans in this year's class." Han Sol shook his hand. "Good to meet you." "Yes, this is my first time away from Earth." Together they walked toward the main building. Alien cadets of all shapes and sizes moved around them. Some had blue skin, others had 4 arms, and a few floated above the ground instead of walking. The aliens gave the two humans plenty of space, their eyes watching with a mixture of fear and curiosity. "They're scared of us," Ji-Hoo whispered. "They call Earth a death world. To them, we're like monsters who grew up in hell." Han Sol nodded. He had read about this during his preparation. Humans came from a planet with high gravity, extreme weather, and a history full of predators and war. Most alien species evolved in much gentler conditions. A tall, thin alien with pale skin approached them. "Earth cadets, I am Administrator Do Yun, your human liaison. Please follow me for orientation." Do Yun led them through wide hallways filled with technology Han Sol had never seen before. The administrator spoke in a quiet voice. "You should know that humans are rare here. The last human cadets graduated 10 years ago. Some instructors may not welcome you?" "Why not?" Han Sol asked. "Many species fear what they don't understand," Do Yun answered. "And humans are very different. Your strength, your endurance, even your thinking can seem frightening to others." They entered a large room where about 30 alien cadets stood in neat rows. At the front of the room stood a massive blue-gray alien with 4 muscular arms crossed over his chest. His face had no nose, just breathing slits, and his eyes were large and yellow. "That's Drill Sergeant Vixtar," Do Yun whispered. "He's a Kalinthar warrior and the toughest instructor at the academy. Try not to get his attention." Too late. The drill sergeant's yellow eyes locked onto the humans immediately. "Ah, our Deathworlders have arrived!" Vixtar's voice boomed across the room. "Come forward, Earth cadets!" Han Sol and Ji-Hoo walked to the front. The alien cadets moved aside quickly, creating a wide path. Vixtar towered over them, nearly 7 feet tall. He leaned down, his face close to Han Sol's. "What is your name, Deathworlder?" "Cadet Han Sol, sir," he answered calmly. "And you?" Vixtar turned to Ji-Hoo. "Cadet Ji-Hoo, sir," Ji-Hoo replied with the same respectful tone. Vixtar walked around them slowly, all 4 of his arms now behind his back. "Humans, so small for creatures with such a big reputation." His voice dripped with mockery. "Your planet's gravity is twice what we have here. Your atmosphere is thick and toxic to most species. Your world has thousands of predators that would eat most of these cadets in seconds." The alien cadets shifted nervously. "Tell me, Cadet Han Sol," Vixtar continued, "do you think you're better than the other cadets because of where you come from?" "No, sir," Han Sol answered simply. "Each species has its strengths and weaknesses." Vixtar laughed, a harsh, barking sound. "Diplomatic answer, but we'll see the truth soon enough." He turned to address all the cadets. "Listen well. Tomorrow you begin your real training. All of you will face the week of pain." A collective gasp came from the alien cadets. "The week of pain is my special training course," Vixtar explained with obvious pride. 7 environments, 7 challenges, 7 days of pushing your limits. No cadet has ever completed it in less than the full week. his yellow eyes fixed on Han Solo again. Perhaps our human thinks he can do better? What do you say, Deathworlder? Do you think you're special enough to break the record? Han Solo met the drill sergeant's gaze. I will do my best, sir. Your best? Vixtar laughed again. We'll see how long that lasts in the swamp of despair. Now, all of you to your barracks. Rest while you can. As the cadets filed out, Vixtar called out, Han Solo! You're in my personal barracks. I want to keep a close eye on the Deathworlder. Administrator Do-Yun looked worried. Sergeant Vixtar, is that really? Are you questioning my decision, Administrator? Vixtar growled. No, Sergeant. Do-Yun backed down quickly. Ji-Hoo gave Han Solo a concerned look as they separated. Be careful, he whispered. Han Solo nodded and followed Vixtar down a different hallway. They entered a barracks room where 10 alien cadets already stood at attention by their beds. Meet your new roommate, Vixtar announced. A real-life Deathworlder. Try not to let him eat you in your sleep. He laughed loudly at his own joke. The alien cadets looked at Han Solo with wide, frightened eyes. Training starts at first light, Vixtar said, leaving the room. Sleep well, human. Tomorrow you'll learn your place. After the drill sergeant left, none of the alien cadets would come near Han Solo. They whispered among themselves, casting nervous glances his way. Han Solo sat on his assigned bed, which was too soft and too large for his human frame. He unpacked his few belongings and placed a small photo of his family on the shelf beside the bed. An alien cadet with pale green skin and large black eyes approached cautiously. Is it true? The alien asked in a whispered voice. That on Earth, you run for fun and lift heavy objects just to get stronger? Yes, Han Solo answered. Many humans exercise daily. The alien shuddered and returned to the others, sharing this terrifying information. That night, as the lights dimmed in the barracks, Han Solo lay awake thinking about the challenge ahead. The week of pain sounded difficult, but after his training on Earth, he wasn't worried. If anything, the lighter gravity and cooler temperature of Calthoria made him feel stronger, not weaker. Han Solo closed his eyes, his mind calm. Outside the barracks door, Drill Sergeant Vixtar stood watching through a small window, his yellow eyes narrow with suspicion. The human showed no fear, no anxiety before the famous week of pain. This troubled the drill sergeant deeply. Tomorrow, Deathworlder, Vixtar whispered to himself. Tomorrow you'll learn what real training means. What the drill sergeant didn't know was just how wrong he would be. The first light of dawn had barely touched the training grounds when Han Solo and the other cadets gathered before the entrance to the Week of Pain course. The massive structure looked like a blend of a military obstacle course and a science lab. It stretched for miles across the academy grounds. Drill Sergeant Vixtar stood tall, his forearms gesturing widely as he explained the challenge. The Week of Pain has 7 sections, he announced, his yellow eyes gleaming. Each section normally takes 1 full day to complete. First, the Swamp of Despair, a toxic marsh that will test your endurance. Then the Mountain of Might, where gravity increases with every step. Third is the Pit of Predators, where you will face combat simulations. Fourth, the Desert of Dehydration, a survival test with limited resources. Fifth comes the Arctic Abyss, to test your resistance to extreme cold. Sixth is the Combat Crucible, intensive weapons training. And finally, the Mind Maze, which will test your mental strength. The alien cadets listened with obvious fear. Ji-Hoo, standing beside Han Solo, whispered, He's going to make it harder for you. Be careful. Vixtar approached Han Solo with a small device. This will track your progress and vital signs, he said, attaching it to Han Solo's uniform. It also lets me adjust the difficulty. His mouth stretched into what might have been a smile, though it looked more like a snarl. Cadet Han Solo will go first, Vixtar announced. The rest of you will watch and learn what happens to those who think too highly of themselves." Han Sol stepped forward calmly. Administrator Do-yun appeared, looking concerned. "Remember, this is just training," Do-yun said quietly. "If it becomes too dangerous, you can press the red button on your tracker to exit." Han Sol nodded. "I understand, sir." Vixtar led Han Sol to the entrance of the course, a dark tunnel with green mist swirling inside. "The Swamp of Despair awaits, Deathworlder. Most cadets take until sunset just to finish this first section." "When do I start, sir?" Han Sol asked simply. Vixtar pressed a button, and a loud horn sounded. "Now!" Han Sol entered the tunnel at a steady jog. The moment he was out of sight, Vixtar turned to a large screen where all cadets could watch Han Sol's progress through the course. "Now we'll see how tough Earth humans really are," Vixtar said with satisfaction. Inside the Swamp of Despair, Han Sol found himself ankle-deep in thick, bubbling mud. The air was filled with green mist that stung his eyes and made breathing difficult. Strange plants released spores that caused a mild burning sensation on his skin. But Han Sol didn't slow down. He had trained in much worse conditions on Earth. The swamp reminded him of the jungle training he had completed back home, just with strange colors and odd smells. He moved quickly through the mud, finding solid paths and avoiding the deeper areas. Outside, Vixtar watched the screen with growing confusion. Han Sol was moving at 3 times the expected pace. The cadet's vital signs showed mild stress, but nothing concerning. "Impossible," Vixtar muttered. He tapped at his control pad, increasing the difficulty. "Let's see how he handles deeper mud and more toxins." Inside the swamp, Han Sol noticed the mud suddenly becoming thicker and the air harder to breathe. He simply adjusted his pace and breathing technique. In his mind, this was still easier than the training mud runs he had done on Earth in twice the gravity. After just 18 minutes, Han Sol emerged from the Swamp of Despair. The alien cadets gasped. Vixtar's 4 hands clenched into fists. "That was refreshing," Han Sol said, wiping green slime from his face. "What's next, sir?" Vixtar pointed wordlessly to the Mountain of Might, a massive rock structure with climbing paths that twisted upward. "The gravity increases as you climb," he said, his voice tight. "Most species can barely stand at the halfway point." Han Sol approached the mountain and began to climb. The increased gravity kicked in immediately, but to him, it felt like returning to Earth's normal pull. He moved steadily upward, using efficient climbing techniques. "He's not even slowing down," one alien cadet whispered. "Look at his muscles," another said. "They're designed for this kind of stress." Jihu couldn't hide his proud smile. "On Earth, we have climbing competitions for fun. Some mountains on our world are 5 times this size." Vixtar heard this and growled. He increased the gravity settings to double the normal level. On the screen, they could see Han Sol pause briefly, adjust his stance, and continue climbing. "That's now 3 times standard gravity," Administrator Do-yun said, looking worried. "That's beyond safe levels, Sergeant." "He's a Deathworlder," Vixtar snapped. "Let's see what he can really handle." Han Sol reached the top of the mountain in just 12 minutes, setting another record. He wasn't even breathing hard when he returned to the ground level. "The pit of predators is next," Vixtar said, his voice now filled with determination. "Let's see how you handle combat, human." The pit was a large arena where holographic predators from across the galaxy would attack cadets. The goal was to survive, not necessarily to defeat the predators. Han Sol entered the arena and took a defensive stance. Vixtar immediately set the difficulty to maximum. "Show me what Earth has taught you about fighting," he muttered as he released the first wave of predators. 3 large bear-like creatures with 6 legs and razor claws appeared, surrounding Han Sol. The human showed no fear. He moved with surprising Speed, dodging the first attack and using one predator's momentum to make it crash into another. The third creature lunged, but Han Solo rolled under it and struck at a vulnerable point on its neck. "How does he know their weak spots?" an alien cadet asked in amazement. "He doesn't," Jihu explained. "He's analyzing their movement patterns and body structure. Basic combat training on Earth. Wave after wave of predators came, each more dangerous than the last. Han Solo defeated or evaded them all with a combination of speed, strength, and tactical thinking. Sometimes he fought directly, other times he used the environment to his advantage." Vixtar's face darkened as he watched. The human was making his most difficult training look easy. Han Solo completed the pit of predators in just 14 minutes. Another record. His uniform was torn in places and he had a few scratches, but otherwise seemed fine. Desert of dehydration. "Next," Vixtar said, his voice now grim. The desert section was a vast room filled with sand and heat lamps. The temperature was set to extreme levels, and only a few hidden water sources existed. Most cadets took a full day to find enough water to survive and reach the exit. Han Solo entered and immediately began analyzing the environment. He looked for signs of water that he had learned from Earth's desert survival training, certain rock formations, plant types, and ground depressions. Within minutes, he found the first water source. "He's not even sweating much," Administrator Do Yun noted, watching the vital signs displayed on the screen. "Humans can regulate their body temperature through sweating," Jihu explained to the curious alien cadets. "We evolved to handle extreme heat on our world." Han Solo crossed the desert of dehydration in just 10 minutes, finding 3 water sources along the way. He emerged looking comfortable and completely unaffected by the heat. Vixtar stared at the screen, then at his control pad. The human had completed more than half the week of pain course in less than an hour. His reputation as the toughest instructor was crumbling before his eyes. "The Arctic abyss awaits, Deathworlder," Vixtar said, his voice now shaking slightly. "Let's see how you handle the extreme cold." Han Solo nodded calmly and headed toward the entrance of the 5th section. Behind him, Vixtar frantically adjusted the settings to make it colder than any cadet had ever experienced. "This is getting dangerous," Administrator Do Yun warned. "You're exceeding safety protocols." But Vixtar wasn't listening anymore. The panic had begun to set in. Han Solo entered the Arctic abyss. Immediately, a blast of freezing air hit his face. The temperature was far below zero, and the room was filled with ice, snow, and frozen obstacles. Vixtar had set the cold to levels that would quickly kill most species in the galaxy. Outside, the alien cadets huddled around the viewing screen. Many wrapped their arms around themselves just from watching the icy environment. "He'll have to give up now," Vixtar said, his voice hopeful. "No one can handle this level of cold." But on the screen, Han Solo moved forward steadily. He pulled his uniform tighter around himself and began a light jog. The movement generated body heat, a simple survival technique from Earth. He analyzed the ice formations, testing each step before putting his full weight down. "His body temperature is dropping," Administrator Do Yun noted with concern, watching the vital signs on the screen, "but much slower than expected." "Humans have excellent cold adaptation," Jihu explained to the amazed aliens around him. "Our bodies shiver to generate heat. Plus, we have special fat that helps keep us warm." Vixtar growled and lowered the temperature even more. Warning lights began flashing on his control pad. "Sergeant, you are exceeding all safety limits." Do Yun protested. "This is now in the lethal range for most species." "Then let the human quit," Vixtar snapped. "He can press the emergency button any time." But Han Solo did not quit. He moved more slowly now, but still with purpose. His face was red from the cold, his breath visible in thick clouds. But he pressed on. When he reached a particularly difficult ice wall, he used techniques he had learned from ice climbing on Earth. He finished the Arctic abyss in just 11 minutes. Vixitar's 4 hands shook as he entered commands on his control pad. "The combat crucible is next," he said, his voice now shrill. "He won't get through this so easily." The combat crucible was a weapons training and warfare simulation area. It tested not just physical strength, but also tactical thinking and weapons mastery. Vixtar had programmed it with the most difficult combat scenarios in the galaxy. "I need to check his progress personally," Vixtar announced suddenly. "Everyone stay here." The drill sergeant rushed to a private control room that overlooked the combat crucible. Through the window, he could see Han Sol enter the training area. Vixtar's fingers flew across the controls, selecting the most difficult settings possible. "Let's see how you handle this, Deathworlder," he muttered. In the combat crucible, Han Sol found himself facing a series of combat robots armed with training weapons. The robots moved with incredible speed, attacking from all directions. Han Sol responded with calm precision, using the hand-to-hand combat techniques he had learned on Earth. When given a training weapon, a staff-like object similar to those used by Galactic peacekeepers, Han Sol quickly adapted to its weight and balance. He spun it expertly, defending against multiple attackers at once. "Impossible," Vixtar whispered, watching through the window. "How can he master that weapon so quickly?" The answer was simple, though Vixtar didn't know it. Humans on Earth practiced many different weapons as sports. Han Sol had trained with similar staffs since childhood. The lighter gravity of Calthoria actually made the weapon easier to handle than on Earth. As Han Sol progressed through increasingly difficult combat scenarios, Vixtar's panic grew. The human had now been in the course for only 49 minutes and had almost completed what was supposed to take a week. Vixitar's reputation as the toughest instructor, his very identity at the academy, was being destroyed before his eyes. In the main viewing area, other instructors had begun to gather. They watched the screens with a mixture of shock and admiration. "I've never seen anything like this," one senior instructor said. "He's rewriting all our understanding of species capabilities." Jihu smiled proudly. "This is why humans are rare in the galaxy. Other species often find us intimidating." Administrator Do Yun looked concerned. "Where is Sergeant Vixtar? He's setting dangerous levels on these challenges." "I'll find him," Jihu volunteered, slipping away from the group. In the control room, Vixtar was now frantically adjusting settings for the final section, the mind maze. This was normally a psychological test that used mild fear stimulation and puzzles to test mental resilience. But Vixtar was transforming it into a nightmare chamber. The door to the control room opened and Jihu entered. "Sergeant, you need to stop this. You're putting Cadet Han Sol in real danger." "Stay out of this, human," Vixtar snapped, not looking up from the controls. "Your friend wants to show how superior humans are? Let him face real challenges then." "This isn't about superiority," Jihu argued. "Han Sol isn't trying to embarrass you. He's just doing his best as you ordered." On the screens, they could see Han Sol completing the combat crucible. He had defeated every opponent, solved every tactical challenge, and was now heading toward the final section, the mind maze. "He's been in the course for 54 minutes, Jihu said. "He'll complete your week of pain in under an hour at this rate." "Not if I can help it," Vixtar growled, locking the control room door. "The mind maze will break him." Jihu tried to reach the controls, but one of Vixtar's 4 arms pushed him away easily. "This has gone too far. You're risking his life because of your pride." But Vixtar wasn't listening. His yellow eyes were wide with panic and determination as he finished the nightmare program for the mind maze. Meanwhile, Han Sol stood before the entrance to the final challenge. He was tired now, but not exhausted. His uniform was torn and dirty from the previous challenges, but his posture remained straight and his eyes clear. The mind maze was designed to create fear through illusions and psychological tricks. When Han Solo entered, the room immediately filled with terrifying images, predators from across the galaxy, fire, floods, and other disasters. Sounds of screaming and destruction echoed from hidden speakers, but Han Solo's expression barely changed. On Earth, humans voluntarily exposed themselves to fear through entertainment, like horror movies and thrilling rides. The psychological stimuli in the mind maze felt artificial and predictable to him. He navigated through the maze methodically, solving each puzzle and overcoming each fear stimulus. The room then changed tactics, creating illusions of isolation and emptiness, targeting the social nature of humans. Han Solo recognized the technique and pushed through it. In the control room, Vixtar watched in disbelief as Han Solo's vital signs remained stable. How is this possible? I've created the most terrifying experience allowed by Academy rules. Because humans face their fears differently, Ji-Hu explained. We're used to psychological stress. Our entertainment often involves scaring ourselves. For fun. As they watched, Han Solo reached the final challenge of the mind maze, a simulation that created the illusion of falling from a great height. Most species had an instinctive fear of falling, but Han Solo simply closed his eyes, controlled his breathing, and walked forward through the illusion. No! Vixtar slammed all four fists against the control panel. He can't complete it. Not this fast! Administrator Do Yun and several other instructors had now gathered outside the locked control room door. Sergeant Vixtar, open this door immediately, Do Yun called. But it was too late. On the screen, they could all see Han Solo reaching the exit of the mind maze. He had now completed 6 of the 7 sections of the Week of Pain. The final section was simply a small room with a button to press to complete the course. Han Solo entered the room, walked to the button, and pressed it without hesitation. A loud horn sounded throughout the academy, signaling the completion of the course. The timer on the screen showed 58 minutes and 37 seconds. Vixtar slumped in his chair, all 4 arms hanging limp at his sides. His yellow eyes stared blankly at the screen. 1 hour, he whispered. He did it in 1 hour. A crowd had gathered at the exit of the Week of Pain course. Alien cadets stood with their mouths open in shock. Academy instructors whispered to each other in disbelief. All eyes were fixed on the door as it slid open. Han Solo walked out calmly. His uniform was torn and dirty. Sweat had dried on his forehead. He had a few scratches on his arms, but he was standing tall and breathing normally. He looked tired but far from exhausted. Cadet Han Solo reporting completion of training exercise. Sir, he said to the nearest instructor, is there anything else scheduled for today's orientation? The instructor just stared at him, unable to speak. Ji-Hu pushed through the crowd and reached his fellow human. Han Solo, you did it! You finished the whole Week of Pain in less than an hour. Han Solo smiled slightly. It was a good workout, Administrator. Do Yun approached, looking both amazed and concerned. Cadet, your performance was unprecedented. How do you feel? I'm fine, sir, Han Solo replied. A bit hungry, though. The doors to the control room finally opened, and Drill Sergeant Vixtar emerged. His blue-gray skin had turned a pale shade. His 4 arms hung limply at his sides. His yellow eyes were wide with shock. He walked slowly toward Han Solo, the crowd parting to let him through. You, Vixtar said in a voice barely above a whisper. How? How is this possible? Han Solo stood at attention. Just following your orders to do my best, sir. One of the senior academy instructors stepped forward. He was a tall, thin alien with skin that shifted colors as he moved. Sergeant Vixtar, we need to discuss the extreme settings you programmed. They far exceeded safety protocols. It didn't matter, Vixtar said, still staring at Han Solo. Nothing stopped him. Nothing even slowed him down. Perhaps we should move this discussion to the briefing room, Administrator Do Yun suggested, and let Cadet Han Solo get some rest and food. No, Vixtar said, suddenly finding his voice again. "Want to know now. How did you do it, human?" The crowd fell silent, all waiting for Han Solo's answer. Han Solo looked around at the faces watching him, some afraid, some impressed, all curious. He spoke clearly so everyone could hear. "The challenges were difficult," he began, "but not as difficult as what we train for on Earth." "Explain," demanded Vixtar. "The Swamp of Despair is similar to training grounds on Earth called jungle courses. We run through them carrying heavy weights." "And the Mountain of Might?" another instructor asked. "Earth's gravity is stronger than here," Han Solo explained. "The mountain felt normal to me, and we have mountains on Earth many times larger." "The Pit of Predators?" someone else called. "Out. Combat training is standard for all Earth military cadets," Han Solo said. "We study movement patterns and weak points of various creatures." Vixtar's eyes narrowed. "And the extreme environments? The desert heat? The Arctic cold?" "Earth has many climates," Han Solo replied simply. "We have deserts hotter than your simulation. We have Arctic regions colder than your abyss. Humans live in all these places." "And the mind maze?" Vixtar asked, his voice quieter now. "I programmed it to create extreme fear." Han Solo almost smiled. "On Earth, we expose ourselves to fear on purpose. We watch scary stories for entertainment. We jump from high places with ropes for fun. We train our minds to handle fear from childhood." A murmur ran through the crowd. The alien cadets were looking at Han Solo with new expressions, not just fear now, but wonder and respect. The senior instructor turned to the other academy staff. "I think we need to reconsider our training programs. We've clearly been using the wrong standards for different species." Administrator Do-Yun nodded. "Earth humans have evolved under conditions that make our regular training almost easy for them." "It's not just physical," Ji-Hu added, stepping forward. "Humans faced predators throughout our evolution. We developed not just strength and endurance, but creative thinking and adaptability." The alien cadets were now gathering closer, their fear forgotten as curiosity took over. "Is it true humans break their own bones on purpose to make them grow back stronger?" one asked. "Is it true you sleep only a few hours each day? Can you really survive losing large amounts of blood?" Han Solo held up his hands. "We're not invincible. We just evolved in a challenging environment." Vixtar had been standing silently, lost in thought. Now he stepped forward again, facing Han Solo directly. "Cadet," he said, his voice now formal. "Report to my office in 1 hour." With that, the drill sergeant turned and walked away. His shoulders slumped. 1 hour later, Han Solo stood outside Vixtar's office door. He had showered and changed into a fresh uniform. He knocked firmly. "Enter," came Vixtar's voice from inside. Han Solo walked in and stood at attention before the drill sergeant's desk. Vixtar was sitting with all 4 arms folded in front of him. "At ease, Cadet," Vixtar said. Han Solo relaxed his stance slightly. "I owe you an apology," Vixtar said, the words clearly difficult for him. "I endangered your life today because of my pride." "No harm done, sir," Han Solo replied. "I need to understand," Vixtar continued. "Were you showing off? Trying to humiliate me?" Han Solo shook his head. "No, sir. You ordered me to do my best. That's what I did." Vixtar studied him for a long moment. "You held back, didn't you?" Han Solo hesitated, then nodded. "A little, sir. I didn't want to cause problems." Vixtar let out a sound that might have been a laugh. "You completed a week-long course in an hour, broke every record in Academy history, and you were holding back? Earth humans are often careful not to appear threatening," Han Solo explained. "We understand how we might seem to other species." Vixtar stood up and walked to a window overlooking the training grounds. The Academy directors have been in emergency meetings all afternoon. They're creating a new position. They want you to help redesign our training programs. Me, sir? You and me, Vixtar corrected. Together. They want a program that can challenge every species appropriately based on their natural abilities. Han Sol considered this. That would be a great honor, sir. Vixtar turned to face him. Why did you come here, Cadet? Earth sends few humans to the Academy. You must have had a reason. Han Sol thought about it before answering. The galaxy needs peace, sir, but peace must be protected. Humans are good at protection. It's what we evolved to do. For the first time, Vixtar looked at Han Sol not with fear or anger, but with growing respect. You know what they call Earth in official galactic records? Vixtar asked. A death world, Han Sol answered. Yes, but perhaps we should rename it. The warrior world might be more accurate. Vixtar extended one of his 4 hands. I think we can learn from each other. Cadet Han Sol. Han Sol shook the offered hand. I would like that, sir. 1 year later, the Galactic Federation Military Academy looked very different. Training programs were now tailored to each species' natural abilities and evolutionary history. Vixtar and Han Sol had become an effective teaching team, combining the drill sergeant's experience with the human's unique perspective. The Week of Pain remained the ultimate challenge, but now had different difficulty settings. The human standard setting was reserved for those who wanted the ultimate test. A new transport ship landed at the Academy docking bay. Administrator Do Yun and Cadet Ji Hu, now an assistant instructor, waited as the doors opened. 5 human cadets walked out, the largest group of Earth humans ever to attend the Academy at one time. Drill Sergeant Vixtar stood behind them, his arms crossed. More Deathworlders, he said, but now there was no mockery in his voice, only anticipation. Let's see what they can teach us. On his desk back in his office, a report was waiting to be sent to Earth. Send more humans. The galaxy needs what Earth has forged.